I'm very happy to leave the word over to Andreas Andersson, the CEO of Intervacc. The floor is yours. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So Intervacc, we are developing the next generation of animal health vaccines. So this is a really important area. It has a lot of focus today. It's important both for animal health and the well-being of animals, but also for human health, since both bacterial diseases and virus diseases can move between animals and human. And this concept is called One Health. And it's an important area also in the fight against the development of bacteria that are resistant against penicillin and other antibiotics. And we're in the center of this. I'd like to start to talk about this vaccine, Strangvac. It's our vaccine against a disease called strangles. In horses, that affects horses. In Swedish, this is called kvarka. Kvarka or strangles is the most frequently diagnosed disease, infectious disease within the horse world or the equine world. It's highly contagious. It's a really nasty disease. And the outbreaks are really costly to control. If you have an outbreak of strangles in your stables, the horses has to be quarantined, and this is a process that takes a long time. In Sweden, normally it's 3 weeks after the last horse has been declared infectious-free. You have severe transportation restrictions, and the stable has to be sanitized. So this is a process that can be disastrous for a stable. It takes for sure several weeks, and in some cases several months, with big consequences both in the terms of suffering for the horses and economic losses for the horse owners or the stable owners. So, and this is a quite common disease. You have a lot of outbreaks around the world. It's a global problem, and it has a lot of attention. In Sweden, you have to report this disease, so the authorities follow the outbreaks very closely, and each outbreak is you can follow it on a map so that you see where are the outbreaks currently. It gets a lot of media attention, especially in the horse world. So the market and horse owners are really waiting for an effective tool to fight this disease. Today there are vaccines available, not in the Nordic regions, but those vaccines are very local. They have not been spread widely, and the use have not been spread widely because there are some concerns with the current vaccines, both in terms of administration, and there are some safety questions. So there's a big medical need for a safe and effective vaccine that can then have a global reach. If we look at the market for Strangvac, we target a global market. The global horse population is around 60 million horses. If we look at our primary markets, which we define as Europe, North America, and Oceania, New Zealand, Australia, and also some other markets around those areas, that's roughly a little bit under 20 million horses. So a third of the world's horses are in those primary markets. In these markets, according to our estimations, these horses are medicated or in vaccination programs to 30 to 60%. More in some regions, less in some regions. And when you enter into a vaccination program, you often revaccinate annually. So you enter into a vaccination program and you stay in a vaccination program. And we think it's reasonable for us to target this market. But we are going for a global market in a step-by-step plan. If we look a little bit to sum up about Strangvac. So Strangvac has an excellent safety profile. We're going to talk a little bit more about the technology behind those type of vaccines and the inherent benefits and the safety of those vaccines. It has really good efficacy, proven in clinical trials. It also has a minimum of 12-month memory cells, which allows us to have an annual revaccination schedule or more frequent. It has an intramuscular administration, and that means when you give a vaccine to, in this case, a horse, the veterinarians prefer that this vaccine should be administered intramuscularly on the side of the horse. And that's exactly how we do it. The other vaccines that has a very limited use but do exist, they are administered in a more complicated way. One of these are administered in the horse lip, and one is intranasal, where you administrate it up in the horse nose. Both of those are not the preferred choice from a veterinarian who prefers to administrate the vaccine intramuscular. So we have a large global market with an unmet medical need. So it's a fantastic opportunity. And where do we stand? So we have all the clinical trials have been completed. We have produced this vaccine in a commercial scale. So last year in the fall, we produced 60,000 batches, 60,000 vials in 2 batches of this vaccine. And we have also completed the dossier, and now by the end of February we submitted this dossier to EMA, who is the regulatory authority who approves the vaccine or gives market authorization. So and yesterday evening EMA confirmed that the application that we have sent in, that it was complete and that we had submitted it correctly. So that the process has now started. So from today, EMA will start to evaluate our dossier, and this process is regulated, and they have now a 210 days time window where they will evaluate the dossier that we have submitted to give an approval. Now, in this process, the 210 days, it stops when EMA asks us questions, so we have time to address those questions. So it's our estimation that this complete process takes about a year, which is then is normal for this type of product. After an approval, then the EU has around 2 months to prove that approval, to implement that approval. And after that, we can access the market, and that gives us access to all the markets that EMA regulates, the European market. Many other countries rely heavily upon EMA or USDA approval, so we can then roll out this product into more market outside the EMA area, and the process for that is a little bit individual depending on region and country. Some are a little bit faster, some takes a little bit longer. But EMA is a huge player in this, and it's a very big market, and we intend to go further and launch this globally. So it's really exciting times. And everything is going according to plan. We are following the process and delivering on what we have projected and said. So that's it feels really, really good. Now it's not so many vaccines. It's a rather big thing. There's not that many vaccines that are handled and submitted to EMA for the central procedure, where you get approval for all of EMA at once. There are different ways to enter with a vaccine product. With these type of vaccines that are based on recombinant proteins, you have to go for a central process, and that has the benefit of that you get access to all of the market right away. But it's only, as you see, a handful of vaccines per year, and we are the first Swedish company to submit a vaccine for central approval. So it's a bit of a historical moment, actually. So that's fantastic. Now, just going back to a little bit what has happened now in the last half year. So back to September last year, we completed a directed share issue where we addressed that to important institutional investors, and that was very, very successful. So we got 62 million Swedish crowns, so about 6 million euro. And these investors went in at no discount. So I think that was a very good stamp on the potential for our company. Since then, and around that time, other institutional investors have also invested in our company, like Länsförsäkringar, who's one of our larger owners now, and Öhmans Fonder, who's also quite big. It's interesting with Länsförsäkringar is that they also one of the owners of Aktier, who's a big, very big or dominant player in animal health insurance here in Sweden. And that's, I think those insurance companies is one of the players that we will talk with when we are launching our vaccine. And by vaccinating, you can prevent big economic losses for the horse owners and for stable owners, and eventually also for the insurance companies. Now, I think I also want to point out that now we have had this capital-intensive phase last year, where we have invested in Intervacc, and we have produced those big validation batches, and we have now handed in the dossier. So this capital-intensive phase is now behind us, and we are in a really strong financial position now for 2020. So that's also feels very good. Animal health in general is a large growing sector market. It grows by demand from increasing spending on pets and increasing demand for animal protein. So we're in a growing market. It's also got a lot of attention for in One Health. It's important both for human health and animal health. So it's also available to have soft funding in terms of incentives. We are using a platform of recombinant proteins. The big benefits of this is the safety profile of the vaccines. It's a modern way to produce vaccines, and this is what we're basing our vaccines on. We are focusing in vaccine products with to bacterial strains or bacteria Staphylococcus and Streptococcus. We have over 30 years experience within those bacteria, and this is how we can stay in the forefront of technology and lead the development of the next generation of vaccines. I want to talk a little bit about our pipeline. We have 2 other vaccine products in our pipeline that I want to point out. One is for piglets. It's against Streptococcus suis. It's an infection that affects piglets, and one of the most common. Streptococcus suis is a zoonotic bacteria, one of those that can travel between humans and animals. The status here is that we're testing candidates in piglets. So that's very, very exciting, and we're now in the phase where we're trying to find the right candidates to go to the next stage. Pigs is a very large global market. There are some 1 billion pigs globally today. They vaccinate frequently already. We are selling other vaccines to this market. So this is a big growing market. Another really exciting project is this against Staphylococcus aureus. Staphylococcus aureus is a bacteria that affects many different species, including humans. So here we are targeting dairy cows and the dairy cow industry, where Staphylococcus aureus can cause mastitis. Mastitis leads to is suffering for cows, but also less production in the dairy industry. There's a very defined market. The estimated cost for mastitis in the U.S. dairy industry alone is some $450 million, and that's only a small portion of the global market. There's some 9 million dairy cows in the U.S., and globally there are over 250 million dairy cows. Staphylococcus aureus is also a big problem for humans when they become resistant against penicillin. We call this an MRSA. And this is a problem that we see will increase, and we believe that is an extremely interesting area. Even for us, even though we're focused on the animal health vaccine, this is still important to fight this disease and this bacteria also within animal health, because it can be a reservoir for humans. Okay, so the takeaway here is Intervacc. We are our first vaccine, StrangVac. We are on track for a commercial launch following EMA approval in the beginning of 2021. We have completed the clinical trials. The production in commercial scale is completed. We have handed in the dossier, submitted that to EMA. EMA has now confirmed that we have submitted this in the correct way, and that the dossier is complete, and that the time clock starts today. We also have a very interesting development pipeline of veterinary vaccines within where we're using the same technology, and we're focusing on those bacterials, Staphylococcus and Streptococcus, which has huge markets for other animals, and it's also a problem in the human health. And we have a strong financial position now going into 2020. So with that, I open up for some questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Andreas. So having handed in the dossier now to the EMA for StrangVac, obviously the focus on the market will shift a lot to the commercialization strategy. And could you provide an update on how you're thinking in terms of sales channels and potential partnerships, and also if you have possibility to comment on the timeline for your commercialization efforts there? So.
Okay. So I think we said this before, but let's repeat this. We are in our own markets where we're selling other vaccines today within animal health, the Scandinavian markets and the Baltics. We intend to sell this ourselves in our direct channels. For a global launch, and first done in the EMA when we get approval, we are going with the strategy of going with a distributor. I think this is a faster way to reach the market. And we have been in discussion with potential partners to do this for a long time. They have been keeping an eye on this very interesting project for years. Those discussions has been intensified over the last year. It's difficult for me to go into details in timing and so on about this. But I think that the further we have gone in this process, and now when we had it in, our position of negotiations has been stronger and stronger. So we're in a good position. But I think that's the kind of the detail level that I can say. we are so as soon as we have approval, we want to access those markets as soon as possible, right away. And so we are preparing for that.
Yeah, and another sort of a different topic, but looking at the current COVID-19 pandemic that's ongoing, could you comment on how you expect it to impact Intervacc and your business as of the situation today?
Okay. Well, I think right now it's like most companies here in Stockholm. You know, we implement what the authorities tell us to do. So we are implementing social distancing, and those of us who can are working from home. So there's much fewer people at the office. We are in the fortunate situation that we can do that. Many of us. We have some lab work that needs to be done at the lab, but many of us can work from home. And I think it's really good that we now have submitted the dossier, and that we are in the phase now where that has been completed, the time has started, nothing can interrupt that. That feels very, very good.
And looking at EMA, do you think there's a risk for any sort of delays, perhaps that there's a risk that EMA might focus on other projects targeting COVID, for example, that might down your priorities?
Sure, I understand. Now, so first of all, EMA, they you know, because of the Brexit and they moved facilities and so on, they've already for a while done a lot of the work from home. The rapporteurs that are going to handle our dossier, they're assigned, so we know who they are, and they are assigned for this project, and they can work from home, which to evaluate the documentation and come with questions from us. I don't think that's going to disturb our process, and I don't think that this EMA, that the administrative part of EMA would be a bottleneck in any other projects concerning COVID-19. So that's as far as I can judge, I don't see any risk of that, honestly.
All right. And just the final question, could you provide us a timeline or an update in terms of the pipeline projects? Obviously, there seems to be quite large end markets and large potential, but it's interesting to see how in time-wise there.
Yeah, these are really exciting as well. But it's so the way we have decided to operate is that we don't give deadlines or timelines on when things are going to be communicated. So we try to be transparent, and we try to tell what we're doing right now. So for the Streptococcus suis, the pig project here, we are testing candidates in pigs. We have previously identified one part that's very so interesting that we have patented that part. For cows, we have done. First, we have started to do those tests with rabbits to identify good candidates, and the next step after that would be to move over and testing in cows. And I think as soon as we have results that are very identifiable and we can communicate if it would be a patent or a different phase, we will communicate that. But we don't today communicate timelines. It can go fast, or it can take a little bit longer time. So I think that's what we can say.
Perfect. So thank you very much, Andreas, and
thank you.
Best of luck going forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.